I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost is with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about an interesting walkaway story that I saw about a week ago. I wanted to show it to you guys, but we just didn't have time for it. So it's from a mutual of mine on TikTok, and he's been talking a lot about Israel, and he's a Jewish man, and the response to the Democrats, and basically it's how they've reacted since October 7th has really opened his eyes. But I find the story very interesting because he knew there were problems before, but he just, I don't know, maybe thought they'd grow out of it, they were worth dealing with. And it's just a really familiar sort of story that I want to bring to your attention, and then have some interesting commentary about it. I also would like to talk about the video that's been released, not publicly, but I guess some journalists have seen the stabbing of Austin Metcalf by Anthony Carmelo, and it doesn't really look like I've seen some other people hyping it up, but from the few articles I read, it doesn't seem like they can see much. But we'll quickly just run through one of them. I don't think they'll find any evidence that would make it so that young man is going to get off. I think he's going to jail. So I just can't imagine what would change the stakes of everything that happened to help him win a self-defense case. But I want to talk about that and some other things as well, some political commentary regarding what's going on with Iran and stuff too. I'll table that to the end if we have enough time to get to it, but I really want to focus on this walkaway story first. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website, because it does cost to stream and run the site, all that good stuff. You guys, again, support it, very much appreciate it, and appreciate you guys. You guys can also check out my website to see different merch on there, and you guys can also check out my book website. There's a link, there's a banner at the top of the merchandise page that'll take you to my book website, where you guys can learn more about the stuff that I write. But there's also a link in the description if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube that will take you to an Amazon page where you can see some stuff. I do have 18 books that are published. Most are fiction, but I do have some nonfiction books, like, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. And the artist who did the cover for this beautiful cover, well, at least through the hand of God reaching out to the baby, is my sister Tina. And she has a sale on her website for her text portraits. They're 30% off. It's birthday 30, which, she is having a sale for her birthday. So I encourage you guys to go to her website, which is tinastextportraits.com, to check out some of her stuff. I'm trying to help my baby sister out. So that's her website. So I encourage you guys to go ahead and look at her stuff. She's got quite a few political people. She's got some movie stars. She's got religious stuff. She's got anime stuff. If you're into anime, like, people really like her Pokemon. She's got the starters. She's got some Eevee evolutions. And those text portraits, she made them out of their names written in Japanese. She's also got some weird stuff on there too, if you like cursed images. Like different mashed up stuff. You just have to go see it and be traumatized yourself. But anyway, go ahead and check out her website. So anyway, let's hop to it and start off with this video. I found this really fascinating because it sounded like other walkaway stories that I've heard. And It's kind of long, but I think it's worth looking at because it just makes me wonder how many people are like him.
Walkaway story.
Let
The
me
real Athena made a
restart it.
video about how
I'm
she
gonna
used
refresh
to
it, restart it.
Shalom Chaverim, this is my walkaway story. The real Athena made a video about how she used to be a Democrat, and I get so many accusations of like being a Republican, being right wing, that I figured I'd do the same. Everyone only knows me in the context of post October 7th, have no idea who I was prior.
And that's true. I didn't start seeing his content until after October 7th. I don't even know what he was posting prior to that, but that's when his stuff really started to blow up because it was an important thing that's going on in the world, and he's a Jewish man. He was talking about it. But I didn't realize he, I guess, wasn't on the right. And he had said something about Trump. I think it was about Trump, and I didn't think it was a fair criticism. And granted, at the time, I had plenty of criticism for Trump myself, but I replied to his video, and he had like commented stuff back, but we had a disagreement. I'm like, this guy, he's not on the right. he's not quite aligned exactly. So this story really tracked.
I've been a Democrat since like I was in 8th grade. I actually kind of remember supporting Al Gore in 2000 as like a 4th grader. I don't remember. But anyways, I've been a Democrat ever since 8th grade. I was a Democrat throughout high school. I was a Democrat during college. I was literally a Democrat up until October 7th. And I wasn't just like a person who voted as a Democrat or registered as a Democrat. I worked for the Democrats. I have a degree in political science, and all of like my internships during college were all within the Democratic Party. I worked on congressional campaigns. I worked on Capitol Hill for a Democratic congressman. I worked in the finance department for a Democratic Senate campaign. I worked for a Black woman who was extremely liberal in the Colorado State Capitol. I ran a state representative campaign for an even more liberal white woman in the 2014 cycle. I have donated to Democrats. I have volunteered for Democrats. I have phone banked for Democrats. I have knocked on doors for Democrats. Going back in time in 2012, on the day of Election Day, I literally drove a golf cart around my college campus, driving people to the polls so that they could vote. Far before TikTok was even a thing, I was an internet warrior on Twitter, on Facebook, in Facebook groups, everywhere there was to make a point about politics. I did it, and I did it as a true partisan Democrat. I have voted down ballot Democrat since 2010 when I first could. I vote in primaries. I go to the caucuses. I vote in the midterms. I vote in the odd off elections. Those are nonpartisan, but they're all Democrats, really. I was a massive supporter of Hillary Clinton. I was a massive supporter of Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, and then ultimately Joe Biden in 2020. I have been there.
I can't stand man, there's a lot of Democrats who wasn't too fond of Hillary, but I mean, I guess there's a lot of I guess more traditional moderate Dems who liked her fine. Man, I know a lot of people like Pete. I can't stand Pete. I mean, people on the left or whatever. I can't stand Pete Buttigieg. So this is foreign to me. But he was deep in it.
All since, and I still consider myself a classical liberal. I still very much believe in higher taxes on the rich. I very much believe that we should be doing far more when it comes to climate change and green energy. I believe that we need to reform the healthcare system to make it even better and cost less. I am a Democrat through and through. So why did I walk away? You see, I always knew of the hypocrisy inside of the DEI woke movement. The whole lived experience thing, it made no sense. And especially as a Jew and as a Zionist, all of the things that we're seeing post October 7, they all were percolating. They all kind of existed under the surface. But at the end of the day, nothing really felt that dangerous. And I just accepted my place as a white passing straight male who needed to check his privilege. And there was definitely some social pressure that goes along with that, in that when somebody says, like, you better listen to me because I'm a Black person, and if you don't, then you're a racist. Well, you know, you just kind of do it because everyone else is going to think you're a racist. And so I did so.
So that's what's interesting to me that I wanted to point out, and that I've heard from other people giving walkaway stories. There was one person, I haven't seen her content in a long time. Maybe she got permanently kicked off of TikTok, but she used to have a Twitter page and do well on YouTube too. But she was a former Democrat, and she gave her walkaway story. And this was, I don't know, maybe in 2021 or something, you know, like after the big era of check your privilege, George Floyd, et cetera, BLM stuff. But she said that she got sick of everyone insisting that she was racist, and that she needed to profess her racism when she herself knew that she and felt that she wasn't racist, but it was something that you had to do. If you were white, you had to accept that you were. So they had that Ibrahim X Kendi, you know, anti-racism sort of mindset at the time going on with the Democrats, and they were saying it's not enough to just be not racist. You have to be anti-racist, like actively fighting against it. And if you won't admit that you're racist, and that's an issue, and that makes you super racist. If you won't just admit that you're racist, it can't be that you're not racist. So they have these rules that people just kind of bite their tongue and they go along with, and they don't push back against, even though they know that's crazy. Like, he's a minority, but he's white passing, and a lot of these folks, I guess he was unaware, didn't care too much for, I guess, Jews. But when a Black woman was speaking, he learned, okay, I gotta shut up. That's the world that they built and the world that he lived in, even though he knew it was nuts, even though other people also knew that it was nutty, but they were just trained to just shut up and take it. And they let all this identity politics stuff really, really overrun their party. Like, he said he was, you know, for higher taxes, and he cared about climate change and healthcare. And those things are still, you know, talked about and fought for, et cetera, within the Democrat Party. But this identity politics stuff is at the forefront of who they are. They're still fighting tooth and nail about this transgender issue. So there's like Elizabeth Warren and all these folks are upset about the Supreme Court ruling, you know, upholding the ban in Tennessee when it comes to transing the minors, and like, no, they need this care. And it's like, no, the ACLU, they spectacularly failed. They weren't even really able to argue that it, you know, having the surgery and all those things lessens, you know, suicide rates and all that stuff. But they're still going full at it. Like, let them in your bathrooms, let them in your sports teams. They're still going hard on it, even though it's an 80-20 issue. And other issues as well. They are killing their base. And it's funny because there's other people doing walkaway stories or putting in the comments, like, because they're like, why are we losing so many men? Why are we losing so many men? And the answer is, you said that men were trash. You said that men were so toxic masculinity. Check your privilege. Men are bad. I'd rather be alone with a bear. You know? That's the narrative. Just shut up, comply, and know your place at the bottom of the totem pole. And you're always going to be terrible because you have your white privilege. Like people got sick of it. People got sick of it. So they're just bleeding support, and they don't know how to get young people back, or particularly young males. And the youth vote is, very Republican right now. So they're in trouble. They're in trouble. Let's listen to what else he has to say.
I went through everything. I unlearned my privilege. I understood where I was, while also trying to do my best to explain the complicated nature of being Jewish inside of this paradigm, but it never pulled through. When Ilhan Omar, said her snide remark years ago, it was never taken seriously as an anti-Semitic remark. Anti-Semitism, Judeophobia from the left has never been taken seriously. Now, interestingly enough, when Charlottesville happened and then also Tree of Life, it did feel in some way that maybe the Democrats actually do care about me. And frankly, the way that Republicans got radicalized by like simple requests during COVID to just like wear a mask was just like very odd and unappealing. And then October 7th comes around and
okay. So I wonder how he was during COVID. The mask didn't work, bro. I know they were saying that they did, but they didn't. It just never made sense to me. The measures that people had, of course, was more than the mask. I think we already talked about this multiple times throughout the week about just how crazy COVID was and the rules. And in hindsight, I was obviously right about everything. And here I am with my pure blood. Never got the jab, still here, still kicking. Haven't been corrupted. I really, there were times where you had to wear the mask if you wanted to go to the grocery store or other places, or just, I still will never get over like when they started allowing people back in the restaurants. And this was at a really cute breakfast cafe that I really liked. And we were ordering from them while they were shut down because we wanted them to survive COVID. So we finally went in the restaurant. I got in there first, and they're like, you have to wear your mask when you come in, and you can take it off when you get to the table. And there was very short space from the door to like where were you going to sit down in a booth. And I'm like, are you serious? And they were like, please, we just don't want to get shut down. We just don't want to get shut down. And so I didn't want to give the waitress a hard time, and I didn't want them to get shut down, but it was cuckoo cachoo. It was crazy. So my eyes were like looking at her like, this is crazy, right? And I'm just pulling my mask out of my pocket, put it on my face, take a couple steps to the booth, sit down, and then remove my mask. It was insane. And then when people could like had stopped wearing masks, and I could just walk around the grocery store and just kind of smile at someone and they could return a smile. I got emotional about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like how much of just like basic human interaction and just seeing someone's face, seeing them return a kind gesture like that, have we just missed out on? And if I noticed that little thing, like how much have we, I don't know, damaged our children from little social interactions that they didn't get to have, whether they couldn't play with their friends or really go outside, or they were trapped indoors, schools were shut down, playgrounds were locked up, So I wonder if he was psycho during COVID. I don't know, but there were some people who were like really aggressive like that. Like there's some people who would have never compromised with that waitress like I did, like, but I genuinely could feel for them because they were terrified of losing their business. So I did comply for a few seconds, went down to my seat and sat and took it off. Everyone knew it was stupid, but I didn't want to see them shut down. But again, there are people who are like, no, never. Like, I think we should take into some consideration some of these places that are between a rock and a hard place, but it was so gross how the government turned businesses against their customers, employers against their employees, family against each other, neighbors against each other. It was deep psychological warfare. But anyway, at the end of the day, we were right. I don't know if we were right, because I don't know if all of you were on the same page as me, but I was right. I was right. But let's finish this out.
And October 8th comes around, more importantly, and everybody just starts saying that Israel's committing a genocide. More importantly, and I guess I would say that I wasn't no longer a Democrat after October 7th, but slowly but surely over time, it became clear that all of the things about Jews and the complicated existence that they had inside of this woke paradigm clearly meant something more. The fact that people were lecturing me as a Jew about Judaism was completely hypocritical. The fact that they were tokenizing the as a Jews, completely hypocritical. The fact that they were willing to spread blood libels, completely hypocritical. The fact that they were willing to support literal terrorist organizations, I don't even know if you can call that hypocritical. It was just beyond the pale. I don't know the exact moment, but I can tell you roughly around the time that Joe Biden and his people decided that they were going to abandon Israel, that they were going to abandon Western liberal values, that they were going to shift an entire foreign policy paradigm, all to win the state of Michigan by appealing to Arab Muslims who were spreading blood libels, who were committing acts of intimidation or supported them. That's when it was. When Joe Biden decided to turn the world on its head, to align himself simply to win an election, the Democratic Party decided back in December, January, February, they decided that they were going to side with the Arab Muslims because they believed that they were a more important voting bloc than the Jews. They were so certain that they were going to have us. They were so certain that we were never going to abandon them, that we were always going to be more liberal than we were Jewish, that they weren't going to feel any consequences, that they could just abandon every single thing that they had said, every belief, every core value that they had expressed over a decade, all for the sake of winning a single state, without even considering how it would impact other states as well, or just like the general gist that people would have about the Democratic Party. It was so clear, so evident that the Democrats don't actually care about anything. They only care about winning elections, all for the sake of winning the next election. That's why I walked away from the Democratic Party. And frankly, when the Democratic Party decides to care about something again, like really care about something and hold true to it, and hold true to the values of what it means to be a Democrat, I'll walk back. But for the time being, I'm going to stay away. Shalom Aleichem.
So that's his walk away story. And it was crazy because they were like pussyfooting with what they were going to do between Israel, like they were holding them up and trying to hold them back and delay them, but they wouldn't like condemn stuff strong enough. And even like times when they would condemn anti-Semitism, they would also have to condemn like Islamophobia and just would always have to make that balance. But they just ended up upsetting Muslims. I think the Muslims probably decided to be more, we're not voting Democrats than the Jews. But in Michigan, they were like, because he's saying they were doing a lot of stuff to try to win Michigan, which was a swing state. We have a large Muslim population in, different places, like Dearborn, for example. And there were different precincts where, people were not coming out for Team Blue. and it was pretty remarkable. So they, lost support on for both ends. And there were people trying to tell the Muslims, like, okay, but if Trump gets in, like, why Trump? And like, we know where we stand with him, but we're not gonna let you guys just play us, and y'all need to be taught a lesson. And they stood on business, and decided not to go that way with Kamala Harris at the time, who ended up being on the ballot. So to this identity politics stuff, I would assume that, I mean, maybe it goes deeper before Obama, but I feel like Obama really changed politics a lot, especially for the Democrat Party, where that really began, they began to really embrace that stuff. And there's people within the Biden administration who were just, from the Obama administration. And, BLM kind of rose during that time. And Obama would say things that, hyper sensationalized different racial events going on in the country. And he was into the LGBT stuff. His administration was suing to get boys and girls locker rooms and so on. And by the time Biden came, a lot of those folks were more radicalized and way bolder than they were before. And they were just committed to that madness and, the DEI and implementing critical race theory type of policies, and judging people by who they want to sleep with, who they're attracted to, whether dudes like to wear women's clothing, and the color of their skin. And if you're a straight white male or even a straight black male, you are no good. You're not just at the bottom, you are no good. So it's sad that he, I guess, found out the truth of how they're treated. But this identity politics stuff and the dynamics of the oppressed versus the oppressor, it goes beyond just white and black, because a lot of these people, like there's different BLM organizations that were supporting the people who came in on the parachutes or whatever they were, and killed people at the festivals. Like, they were uplifting those folks. And some of the commentary right after October 7th was just insane. So a lot of these people that were into the BLM sort of dynamics, white privilege, white oppressors or stuff bad, uplift black people are speaking, listen to them. They just switched over their focus and were like, okay, well, guess what, Jews, you are white passing. And the Palestinians, we see them as the brown people who have been oppressed. And they're the perpetual victims. And you guys are the oppressors. And every sort of action committed against an oppressor is justified. And the sort of conversations they were having with that, I'm like, okay, if that's how they feel, that any act of aggression committed against the oppressor is justified, y'all were calling white people the oppressors 2 seconds ago. So at what point are y'all getting ready to just, I don't know, off the white people if you can, and just justify whatever kind of violence is used against them? And maybe that's their default kind of personality or whatever anyway, because you saw so many people quick to defend Anthony Carmelo, or is it Carmelo Anthony after stabbing Austin Metcalf. I'm like, there's no way that this was justified. There's no way that level of aggression is justified. Like, well, y'all been telling us what to do for too long. This ain't back in the day before Rosa Parks. You can't just tell people to move. You ain't got no right to tell them to move. So you can stab people? Not just stab people, kill them? At a school? Why'd you have a knife? But they'll say it's justified. So if you keep playing into those dynamics, don't be surprised when one day you find people calling you the oppressor, and they're making excuses for how the oppressed are literally stabbing you to death or doing other heinous things to you. But this dynamic of the oppressed versus oppressor, it's not just race based, right? People will also look through that lens financially. So he, mentioned that he believes that the rich should be taxed more. There's a lot of rhetoric like, oh, the rich need to pay their fair share. I'm like, how much is your fair share when you start taxing people and they're paying more than 50% of their income? That's insane to me. Like, to me, fair would be everyone paying not the same, but like a same kind of percentage. Like if you had some kind of flat tax, but people don't want to do that. And they'll argue like, well, it's harder for, the people with lower income, even though they're getting taxed very little, if even at all. A lot of people don't pay any taxes at all, period. But they still have a smaller bit of money to work with comparatively, obviously, to someone who's multimillionaire or a billionaire. But so we gotta punish those people for, I don't know, putting themselves out there, starting a company, building that from the ground up, and just running with the American dream. They have to be punished more for their hard work, and people just assume that all these folks are evil because they have a lot, and that just seems incredibly immoral to me and unfair. Like I don't know the answer to how much of someone's income that's not yours is a fair share of them paying and covering your health care and all the little social programs that you benefit from. How much is taking from them would be a fair share when they pay most of the taxes, the upper income folks. And then, folks, if you don't have a lot of money, you should learn to live within your means as much as you can. Save up, pay off your debts, get more skills, get better jobs, and then you level up. But if you just assume someone is evil, I'm not saying that he does, but I'm saying these dynamics that people have go beyond just race. Like I was watching a video from someone, I don't know their name, and I don't follow him, so I don't know why he just was popping up in my feed, but he does a lot of Naruto content, like anime content or whatever. And there was a question on Twitter that he was like answering on TikTok. It was like, which one of these would you want? Which one of these items? And I didn't recognize one of them, but three of them. One was a set of Dragon Balls from Dragon Ball Z. If you gather all 7, you can call to Shinron and then make a wish. There's certain things that he can't do, but most things Shinron can do. Then there was the Death Note. Death Note is an anime where there's a Death Note that's owned by these, gods called the Shinigami. They're death gods. And if you get it, if you touch it, then, and it becomes yours or whatever, you can write the name of someone in the Death Note. And as long as you are picturing their face, they will die. You can control how they die, but if you just write their name and think of their face, they will have a heart attack within, like, I don't know, maybe it's been a while since I watched it and read it, but maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute or whatever. It was a really good show. It's one of the people's favorite anime. I read the manga. Then I watched in Japanese and I watched it in English. I saw the live action movies, not the Netflix one, but they had 3 that they did in Japan. The only thing I didn't see was the Netflix one. There was like a news story that came out. I didn't read that. It seemed kind of like it might be a little woke, so I just let that go. And then the third thing was like the Omni Matrix thing from Ben 10, where it keeps a lot of information for different aliens, and Ben 10 can become those different aliens, take on those powers. And that's the thing he ultimately ended up picking. I don't know what the fourth thing was, but when he was like going through his explanations of which thing he wanted or would or wouldn't pick, he got to the death note and said, there's a lot of billionaires and government officials who I would be a problem for, or something like that, if I had this. And he said it quick in passing. That's like all he said about it. But I'm like, what the heck? What the heck? I mean, there's some bad billionaires that do cause a lot of harm to the country through the things that they advocate for with their money. And you probably know that I'm thinking about George Soros. But that doesn't mean, I don't know how deep he's thought about it, how much resentment he has towards billionaires, but just because people have a lot of money doesn't mean they're inherently evil. You know? And he says there's a lot of billionaires. I'm curious what his list is. I'm curious what his list is. I'm curious what his list is with the politicians too. It's just, you know, you're not talking about I guess it's a hypothetical situation, but you're not talking about fictional people that you would kill. That's what the death note is for. At least the whole premise of the story is that the person who finds it, he's a genius. And he writes, he doesn't really think it's real or whatever at first, but he does write in someone's name who was about to sexually assault a young woman, like on the bus or whatever, and he died. So he saw that it worked, and he's like, oh my gosh, I just killed somebody. And then he's like, I can make a better world. And so then he just decides to go on a killing spree, but he's killing criminals. So his dad's a cop, and he would just, you know, watch the news or get information from the police records or whatever, and he just started writing in names of criminals, and it was bringing down crime and stuff. But then, you know, the world's greatest detective ended up figuring out that someone was murdering all these people with some kind of special device, and then it became like a game of cat and mouse between him and this guy L. So it was Light versus L, and it was a great show. But yeah, just I got some billionaires I'd like to kill. That is so weird. That's so weird. It's so weird. Which that reminds me of this Mark Ruffalo video that I did mention the other day, but I didn't show you guys. So let me go ahead and pull that up for you. Because man, Mark Ruffalo, I can't stand his butt. But he was at the I think it was the No King's Day, some event, and he said his 2 cents. Mark Ruffalo is the actor who plays the Hulk in the MCU. Excuse me, if you're not into Marvel movies, you may know him from, he was in the Now You See Me film, maybe just the first one, I don't know. I can't remember. He was just in that really weird, gross movie with Emma Stone where she was like a woman who had a baby brain in her head and became a prostitute or something. I didn't watch the film, but it sounded really gross, but and perverted. He was in 13 Going on 30. So he's been in a lot of stuff. He's not one of my favorite actors. I don't think I've ever seen a movie with Mark Ruffalo and was like, that movie is better because Mark Ruffalo was in it. The most, you know, kind of that movie was Mark Ruffalo movie that I can kind of think of is probably 13 Going on 30, but I don't know, they could have got someone else to be in that role or whatever. I think that's the first time I kind of noticed Mark Ruffalo. I don't know, but I wouldn't rather have him be the Hulk than Edward Norton. But anyway, here's Mark Ruffalo.
It's not the immigrants, it's the billionaires. Well, we're seeing what's happening. First of all, we're understanding that immigrants aren't the criminals. If you look at the statistics, most of the crimes that are committed in this country are by white people.
You know, there's a reason why I know minorities are called minorities. Yeah, there's a lot of white people in this country. But if you illegally cross the border, didn't you do something illegal? If you did something illegal, is that not a crime? Is that not a crime, sir? If you illegally enter into a port of entry, and then the people who have the audacity to leave and then come back, sir, come on. There's a reason why we call it illegal aliens.
That
and he's and it's really dishonest and it's really disrespectful to just conflate illegal aliens or illegal immigrants, or they want to say undocumented. He didn't even say undocumented. He's just conflating them with legal immigrants who have come to the country and have done things the right way and waited their turn and were on their best behavior and paid whatever they had to pay and helped to get their family over here, however long that took. They waited in line. They took the test. They assimilated. Some people are over here for years on visas before they can finally take that test and become a citizen. I showed you guys before, I think on maybe Monday or whatever, Arnold Schwarzenegger's video when he was on The View. And they're like, oh, how do you feel about ICE? And he's just like, this is a great country. You got to come in the right way. These people doing things illegally are not doing something smart. And I feel like you could have heard a pin drop in that studio. But just saying some freaking normal stuff. Legal immigrants do not appreciate being lumped in together with people who cut in front of them. Just think about, I mentioned this before, think about being in a grocery store and how annoyed people are when someone is like, I'm not waiting in the line. I'm going to cut in front of you. Like, I think most of the time people will do this in like the quick checkout or whatever. And they'll just jump in front of folks and expect nobody to say nothing. I'm not the, like, you better try that nonsense behind me. just think about that. It's probably annoying enough when you're a kid. But like adults doing that crap? Like, are you kidding me? If that's annoying to people, imagine people who have illegally immigrated to this country and then or trying to, they're here with permission with visas, and then they're doing everything that they're supposed to be doing, hoping to become a US citizen, and they see folks coming in, that Maryland man who was sent out of the country and they brought him back, and the Democrats like, bring him home. He was trafficking people. They brought him back so they could convict him, allegedly making big bucks, just driving people to and fro. that upsets people. That bothers people. It bothers me, and I was born here, bro. Long history, family history in this country. But I've been to other countries and met people who want to come here. People who have volunteered with the United States government, working at the embassies. And when I was in the Philippines, there was a civilian spy following us with a satellite phone, making sure that we weren't kidnapped. People like that want to get into America. And then we don't know who's crossing the border. So it's just ignorant. It's unfair. And it's nonsense. And it's like, it's not the immigrants, it's the billionaires. What did the billionaires have to do with anything other than like billionaires who probably want the cheap labor, but you want them to be here. And you, so you and some of these billionaires are tight, bro. And I just think it's so funny. It's so funny when rich dudes like him, rich people who are paid to pretend professionally. It's not like he's rich because he cured some kind of disease or discovered something, made some kind of grand invention that improved all of our lives. He is an actor who's made a lot of money, and that's cool. You get to do that. That is such an amazing. I appreciate very good actors. You know, he's not one of my favorites. I'm not saying he's like terrible. I just, you know, I've never been like, oh, that movie was better because Mark Ruffalo was in it. That's just never been anything I've ever said or thought before. So, but he's very privileged to be able to do this amazing career. Very privileged to be able to do that and make a lot of money. But it's the billionaires that are a problem and not millionaires like you and your buddies. How much money does Robert Downey Jr. have to make before he's a problem? I'm just curious. What's the number? Because Bernie Sanders used to say that millionaires and billionaires, and if you go back to like 2016 or whatever, some years ago, when he would campaign, it was millionaires and billionaires. And then he started selling some books or getting some fame from running for president or whatever, and got to buy more than one house. And, you know, now it's just the billionaires that are a problem. It's not Bernie Sanders. And which billionaires, bro? Are you going to call out all your Democrat buddies who go and bend the knee to Alex Soros, George Soros' son? They go, they're summoned to his tower, and they snap the photos just so everybody knows whose side they're on.
Immigrants, and they add to our economy by the billions. And so for every horrible thing that you have to go through in life, you get an equal gift in return. And the gift of this time is that we get to see who the true villains are. We get to see who's really making our lives unbearable and who's making us so desperate. It's not the immigrants, it's the billionaires. And it's time to take our country back from that extreme wealth that has its hands all over the power of the nation and become a beautiful, burgeoning democracy that works for the people, not just the very wealthy. America is us, this incredible panoply of different kinds of people. Be brave, man. We live in the land of the land of the free and the home of the brave. But if you want to be free, you better be brave.
It's like, which billionaires are so bad, man? And again, what's the number? What number makes you a bad guy? Like, come on. It's the billionaires. And then, like, oh, they add so much money to the economy. A lot of people get paid under the table. Yeah, they pay sales tax and stuff, but how much money gets sent home to their home countries to people that are still there? That's a huge part of some of these countries' economy. Just money that's sent back from the United States of America. That's why people don't want Trump to charge like remittance fees when people for folks trying to send money back. They don't want that to happen. So, you know, someone in the comments said he's not worried about them taking his job. Maybe someone ought to. So someone said, I can't take him seriously with this side hat anyways. I don't know what that's about. I don't know what that's about with him trying to look cool or whatever. But yeah. But you heard him talk about this class warfare stuff. Billionaires bad. They're the ones who are ruining our life. We have to take back our country from these people, these elitists, and so on, as if he's not a part of the elite himself. But he's also said some very like anti-Israel type of nonsense in the past, and some things that people would feel were anti-Semitic. So a lot of these people follow the same train of thought. It's the oppressed versus the oppressor. They see the other as the victim, and you know, if you have what they deem as social status or power or whatever, you're the bad guy, and you are always wrong. And the people who do wrong, even if it's a crime, even if it may be violent or whatever, there's some kind of social ill that's the reason for that. They don't have the agency to really be responsible for the actions that they took. And by the way, maybe you deserved it. Maybe you deserved it. So to the I can't think of his name. The walkaway video that we just watched, just, I'm glad that he woke up and saw that the Jewish community isn't treated so well by the Democrats. And by the way, there's people on the right who are anti-Semitic or say anti-Semitic things for clicks. And I don't know how many of these people might be paid to say this stuff. From Meghan McCain weighed in, and she said that she's like, a lot of people get offered money from foreign adversaries and, from different countries to say certain propaganda. And she claimed that she was approached as well, but she turned it down because she says she has ethics. But she said it happens more than you think. So I don't know who all is in on it. It could be that a lot of people are saying stuff for clicks or to cause, I don't know, division in other kind of ways. I don't know. But there are issues on the right, but the left, they have been really obsessed with identity politics, and they're always going to end up eating their own tail. So anyway, I hope they keep bleeding support, and I hope Republicans just aren't stupid and they don't blow the sort of goodwill that they're making with certain folks, because they're disillusioned with the Democrats. They need a place to go. So the time is now for Republicans to act and govern responsibly and wisely, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Something interesting going on right now is that Tucker Carlson, I had mentioned that he did an interview with Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz had mentioned and Trump and other people were saying that Iran tried to kill Trump. And Tucker Carlson was like, if Iran tried to kill Trump, then we should have invaded and we should have gone after them. And so I don't know, the fact that we didn't start, because he was saying stuff like, if we attack Iran, it's going to be World War III and you're going to get China and Russia involved and so on. He had a lot of wild predictions that aren't coming to pass, but so it was really bizarre. Like, so you don't think that it happened, even though there have been indictments. It is news that there was a plot to kill Trump backed by the Iranians. But you just don't believe it because Trump wasn't like, well, now we got to nuke them, or now we got to get into a 20-year forever war, and now we got a regime change. And I don't know how often people might plan to do different plots or whatever, but I just don't think you can probably, I guess you could. I don't think it's practical to probably go start full on war with every country that does that. Now, if they were successful, maybe that's a different story, but I don't know how many of these people would want to go full on war if they unalive Trump, just to be frank with you. I don't know how many Democrats would be like, yep, let's do that. It's so bizarre. And so I saw like Matt Walsh like kind of echo that point. Like they thought it was a good point, and Dave Smith like had said that as well. And folks are pointing out like, no, it actually happened. There's evidence, like went through a trial and people have been indicted, and folks still don't want to believe it. It's I know, very strange. Like, let me see if I can find the clip with Dave Smith. I had retweeted the one with there's a Ted Cruz had retweeted Matt Walsh and him talking about it, and then just laid out, here's the indictment, here's an article, here's this, here's that, like here's the evidence. And someone brings it up to Dave Smith, and he said he just claims there's no proof.
The man, okay? You're telling me Donald Trump, they tried to assassinate him, and Donald Trump's response was to negotiate? His response was to negotiate with the...
I'm going to say this. A Manhattan federal prosecutors in November 2024 charged Farhad Shakeri with plotting to kill Trump before the election at the behest of the Iranian government and the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. They ordered an operative to assassinate Trump. His name is Farhad Shakeri. You can look him up. He's been charged. I don't think Manhattan federal.
Robert, absolutely no proof.
Okay, Rob, you could go read the indictment yourself. If Tucker is proven wrong, do you think he'll admit it? It depends how he's confronted about it. I don't think like something he'll like voluntarily say. But like when Ted Cruz, at one point they were talking about AIPAC, and a lot of people are like, oh, AIPAC is controlling everybody and enacting on Israel's interest. And Ted Cruz was like, AIPAC fails like all the time as far as that goes. And he brought up how during the Obama administration that he was very anti-Israel. Ben Rhodes, who was working in the Obama administration, his nickname was Hamas because he was so hostile to Israel. And Obama was kind of like, Democrats, you guys can be me or you guys can be pro-Israel. And they were Team Obama. And then AIPAC still worked to get those people reelected. And so Ted Cruz made the point. He's like, if the NRA, was like, oh, we're going to, if the people just did some blatantly anti-gun stuff, and then they're like, we're going to work to make sure that all these people just get reelected, people would be ticked off of the NRA, and the NRA just wouldn't be what it was. I know a lot of activists that don't like the NRA because they don't protect gun rights enough. But but Ted Cruz was talking directly to Tucker at the time in that interview, and he was like, yeah, you're right. I watched that happen with AIPAC and the Democrats. You're right about that. So I don't know. It depends. I don't think he will voluntarily be like, yeah, I was wrong about World War III in Iran and stuff. Here's a good question. Why don't they ever protest gay people and women being treated poorly in those countries? Because at the end of the day, those are still brown people. So, you can't speak too harshly about that. I mean, think about how many people on the left don't want to say anything about Islam and the ideology there, and things that are questionable ethically. They'll talk about Christians all day long, every day, but they don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. I mean, think about in the UK when they had the grooming gangs, when they were harming and abusing their own women, and folks didn't want to say anything and speak up because they didn't want to be labeled an Islamophobe. Like, they cared more about that than actual justice and preventing abuse of white women. So it didn't matter that they were cis men. They were still brown men. So they got, higher in the hierarchy. So there's just a huge immoral imbalance with these guys. it's a huge imbalance. But anyway, before I let you guys go, because I really can't go over too long today, I do want to mention that there was a video of the stabbing of Austin Metcalf, but it doesn't look like, from the articles I'm reading, it seems like it was very pixelated and you can't really see much of the stuff going on. And I don't know what might be more cleared up for a trial. They're not going to release it to everybody. But I'm going to read this from this local article. Frisco, Texas. Frisco ISD has granted restricted access to surveillance footage on the April 2nd incident that resulted in the death of Memorial High School student Austin Metcalf and the arrest of student Carmelo Anthony. The district did not provide a copy of the video, but allowed reporters to view it, citing student privacy and school security. WFAA was not allowed to take pictures or video of the footage. The wide angle video shows a distant view of half of the stadium, with the incident unfolding in a small fraction of the top left corner of the screen at the Memorial High School team tent. It's difficult to determine how many people are present or what exactly is happening at the tent. Metcalf and Anthony are not identifiable in the video shown to WFAA. At around 9:55 a.m., a sudden movement is observed at the tent, but the alleged act itself is not visible. There are a lot of moving but heavily pixelated figures at the top of the bleachers just above the tent, and at the bottom of the tent it appears to be sprinkling at the time. Shortly after, several individuals believed to be students are seen running from the area, while others on the field react and moved toward the back gate. Emergency medical services arrive about 9 minutes later, entering through the same gate and parking at midfield. Austin's brother Hunter previously told WFAA that he held his brother until the first responders started attempting resuscitation. I tried to whip around as fast as I could, Hunter said. I looked at my brother, and I'm not going to talk about the rest. I tried to help him. Paramedics are seen wheeling a gurney to the area at the bottom of the bleachers where apparent triage efforts for Metcalf take place. About 15 minutes after the incident, a tarp is raised over the bleachers. An image later captured by the helicopter news cameras. The rain is beginning to fall heavily at the time. Roughly 26 minutes after the incident, EMS units depart and individuals believed to be law enforcement are seen near the crime scene around the tent. The surveillance footage is expected to be a key piece of evidence in the legal proceedings ahead. A grand jury may review it in the coming weeks to determine whether to indict. Carmelo Anthony's attorney, Mike Howard, of the law office of Mike Howard, confirms he has seen the footage, though neither family has disclosed whether they have. Anthony is currently facing a murder charge and is under house arrest and an ankle monitor. A funeral was held for Austin on April 12th at Hope Fellowship, Frisco East, followed by a private burial. The case has sparked deep tension. Recently, concerns have been raised about whether the case may be tried outside of Collin County. Ultimately, that would be a judge's decision to make at the time of trial. But yes, this happened in Collin County. I want Collin County citizens to be able to decide this. Collin County District Attorney Greg Willis told WFAA in an April interview. Yeah, it is really sad. Especially thinking about his brother, holding him as he's dying and waiting for paramedics and being there as they try to resuscitate him and stuff. It's hard to think about. And this guy just stabbed him in the freaking heart. But it doesn't sound like the media could really see anything. The Daily Mail kind of hyped it up. I couldn't read their articles because it's behind a paywall, but I've read articles. It doesn't seem like they could really see from the video what's going on. I don't know if they can clear that up for the jury once the trial actually starts. But again, I just can't imagine any situation that would end up justifying what had happened. The fact that he had the knife, according to witnesses, he did provoke with the touch me and see what happens kind of comments. You know, you're not just like an innocent bystander of what's going on. So, yeah, people might be hyping this information that has come out, but just FYI, based on the articles that I've read, this is the only one that I've read. It doesn't sound like you're able to see much from the video itself, but there are witnesses, and nothing that I've heard about the case is getting Anthony off. Nothing. The best they can do is try to behave as much as possible and try to reason to get the sentence down that he's not going to get the death penalty, but not in there for the rest of his life. But he took away someone else's life. He took away someone else's life, and I'm still puzzled. I don't understand why. Like, I don't understand the background. You know, he has, again, two-parent home. You know, that doesn't mean that you're not going to go off and do something crazy, but it just, you know, doesn't seem like he's a street kid that, you know, I don't know. I don't know what was going on in his mind that possessed him to do that. There's just no justification for it. Just no justification. Oh, that's so sad. My cousin is a twin and lost her sister as an adult to a freak car accident, and it's like she is going through life without part of herself. I can't imagine the brother's life now. Yeah, I am. Yeah, if I keep talking about it, I'm gonna get pretty emotional. I hope this family can find justice. To me, it just right now, it would be a total miscarriage of justice if he got away with murder. Now, there's people saying, oh, the fact that he's out on bail, that they let him get out on bail, proves that the video or whatever the evidence they have that he didn't do it. It's like they just don't think he's a flight risk. And people point out the state will get back that money anyway. So like, why would you? So they let him post the bail. Is what it is. People are mad about that, but he's not a flight risk. He's presumed innocent. You know, they're preparing for his trial and whatnot. Doesn't mean that he's getting off. And people are speculating about why they won't release the whole video to the public. And I don't know. It doesn't have to be some kind of huge conspiracy. This is a case involving minors, and maybe they're concerned about how much they're going to, I don't know, tamper the potential jury pool with people feeling all sorts of different ways prior to the actual trial. So we'll just have to wait till things unfold, and when there's more information, I'll let you guys know. Anyway, please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website, because it does cost to stream, run the site, all that good stuff, so you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it and appreciate you guys. I encourage you guys to check out some of my books that are available. There's a link in the description. I'll take you to an Amazon page where you can check out my different stuff. I have 18 books all together, and you guys can get them on Kindle. Most of them are on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have that, you guys can. All my nonfiction books are. All my fiction books are available on the Kindle Unlimited, but you guys can paperback or ebook. So go ahead and check that out. And hope you guys have a good weekend, a blessed weekend. Be safe out there, and I will see you